Physically disabled users of Reddit, what are some less commonly talked about struggles that come with your disability? Not me, but my dad is blind. Lots of home appliances have been going from physical knobs and buttons with clear distinct functions to touch screen panels, some without even any type of sound or tactile cue to let the person know. Bowel and bladder issues. It may not be obvious, but they can be a constant issue. Also pain that isn't obvious. I have chronic pain from being crushed in a head-on with a semi. I use low-impact, high-intensity exercise as my go-to pain management. If my muscles are sore from working out, my chronic pain isn't always the focus. This has me in really good shape but still very much disabled. Unfortunately, that makes it look like I'm a completely able-bodied person that's just lazy. Just the exhaustion from having to deal with your limitations, both physically and mentally. Doing anything always takes extra effort, and usually requires more resting to feel up to doing whatever else needs to be done. As a disabled person who works, I usually only have enough energy to make dinner when I get home. So chores tend to pile up, and some jobs just never get done because it requires more energy than I have in one day, unless I get someone else to do it for me. I use a cane, and sometimes my fiancé forget I only have one hand available when standing. Also the amount of energy required to do the same activities. The fact that it's hard to keep friends because you have to cancel last minute so often. It's not that I don't want to go, I so want to go, but my body said no. Only the best of friends stick around after years of this. Not, always, being able to tell when an illness or injury is bad enough to need medical attention. When nauseous, fatigued, and in a noticeable amount of pain is just your constant state of being, it's not easy to know when something worse might be going on or if you're just having a bad flare-up. Farts are wheelchair height. People get mad when I'm standing in the disabled line. Yes, I've fucking noticed I'm in the disabled line, thanks for reminding me of that. I am disabled and a part-time forearm crutch user. I have been accused for doing this to get attention because I'm young and I don't look disabled. Menus up way behind the cash registers. I've always wondered if it gave people with normal sight problems. The social aspect. So many people get mad, like I'm not disabled enough to be using whatever help I need. But it takes me so much longer to recover from overexertion. Kind of makes me want to deposit people in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Just because they technically could tread water for 3 days doesn't mean they should have to or that they would be in any condition to go to work the next day. Accessibility gets talked about, but what gets me? Shitty accessibility. I live in Adelaide. We have a stylized gutter system in the shopping CBD that's meant to mimic a river or some shit, and it sways and curves around. Meaning all the fucking inner CBD shopping lane is uneven and slopes to the gutter that wavers around. Combined with polished stone that gets slippery when wet, it's a nightmare to try and control a wheelchair of any type. Also, steep ramps. Fucking hell, I am not that buff and strong, my shoulders dislocate under force. Your 30-degree ramp is fucking terrifying. The heinous need to be near a bathroom at all times. You wouldn't think, but so many places don't have bathrooms and it really limits where you can go and how you socialize. It's very limiting. Brachial plexus palsy from birth. There's so many things that you would never even think of would be difficult to do, until you have to reach with both arms. Changing light bulbs and ceiling lights, hanging curtains, screwing things into walls, putting things on or getting things on a high shelf. I'm a fairly tall person, but I end up standing on chairs a lot. The problem is even with standing on a chair, say, to put a screw in the wall to hang a picture, my paralyzed arm will only reach out about a ½ inch from my body. Putting on a coat can be weirdly difficult. I usually just stuff my one arm in it and then swing the coat around to get my other one in. Also, coats and jackets and long sleeve shirts always look a little odd because one sleeve is always cuffed up. That's more vanity than anything, but it's just something that I have to do most days. I'm grateful that even though I have a disability, I've had it since birth. There were many times in my life when I wished I had 2 working arms, and that I could be like everyone else. I used to dream that one day I would wake up and my arm would just work. That's never going to happen. However, this is the only way I've ever known how to live. So I guess it could be worse. I don't mind it now, I can joke about it. It's part of who I am. Married people of Reddit, what's something you wish unmarried people knew? Being married shouldn't take away from having a good relationship with yourself. Your single problems will be your married problems. Marriage and your spouse can't fix you. Work on yourself as much as you can before you get married. For yourself and for your spouse. It's okay to use 2 blankets. No one likes to wake up with cold ass cheeks because your spouse stole the blanket. Getting married will not help solve any issues in your relationship. The wedding is just one day and does not fix any issues. It goes back to the exact same relationship afterwards. And if you're lucky, that's a good thing. Common values matter way more than common interests. A gracious heartfelt apology goes a long way. Compromise is not a sign of weakness. It is done out of respect for your spouse. You don't have to argue or fight. You're different people and it's okay to not agree on everything. It would be weird if you did. I see a lot of people fighting because they're always trying to get the other person to come around to their point of view. Accept that you're different and have fun together. In addition to loving each other, you should like each other. Edit, seriously amazed by how this has blown up. I've actually made these same points at other times on different subreddits and it hasn't always been so positively received. Thank you. Marriage changes nothing about a relationship. You will be exactly the same after marriage as you were before. Kids on the other hand. It's not you vs spouse. It's you and spouse vs problem. Getting married is easy. Staying married is hard. Get help if things seem too hard. My wife and I both carried a lot of childhood trauma into our marriage. A counselor helped us both understand that and gave us tools to handle it. We would have divorced without the help. Don't be dumb and rush into it. This takes a lot of work. Find someone who is your biggest cheerleader and vice versa. No matter what, life is so much easier. Love my wife. It's better to stay single forever than to marry the wrong person. What is the worst thing about being skinny? It's so easy to hit your pelvic bone on the side into things, and it hurts so much. My partner and I are both skinny. When we are intimate it often happens that it's just bone on bone which is not comfortable. Like this morning we were spooning. I was the little spoon. And he had his arm resting on my hip. That's all it takes. There is just no soft cushion between us. People feel the need to just fucking pick you up all the time. Put me down. I don't care how strong you are. People noticing every fluctuation in weight. Lap isn't as comfy for dog to sit on. Finding pants that fit. People assuming you have an eating disorder. As someone who was underweight in my childhood up to my early 20s, and suddenly obese in my 30s. It doesn't matter what weight you are, people will always have something to say about it. But one thing I hated about being skinny, was always being the one to have to sit in the middle seat in the car. It's easier to be tossed around in a fight. Going to an amusement park and realizing that no one else thinks the seats on the rides are too hard. I was in pain. Sometimes even just sitting hurts because there's not enough fat to cushion the bones and they press directly on the nerves. The worst part of being skinny for me was no one actually looking into why I was skinny and just throwing the anorexic label on me, threatening to shove tubes into me if I didn't just simply eat more, even though eating more would usually just worsen the agony and nausea I got from eating. I am diagnosed with Crohn's disease these days and that was back when it was at its absolute worst. They. Bracelets. And watches. Never. Fit. You cannot do a very splashy cannonball into the pool. People telling me that I look hungry.